do, then you might be able to play with them. You know, you might find that they're nicer to you. But if you jump on them like that, you know, she didn't like that too much. Goldie's there. Actually, Clyde's there too. See, you could have been part of that. You could have been part of that, but you jumped on her. You scared her. It's wet. It's cold. It's white. I don't know. You know, it makes mush on the ground, slushy. That's why you don't like it. It's different than everything you're used to. You're not going to see it much here. You know, I'm sorry that you're seeing it. I love you. I love you. Ultimately, it's going to be, you know, what's best for the two of us, you know. I think that we'll be happier there, you know. We get to do the things that you like to do and the things that I like to do, right? So, by the way, this is snow. He's never seen snow. This is snow, bro. He's seeing a lot of it. You're not going to see much of this because you're in the south, you see. But, yeah, it's coming down. It's kind of gross out here, look. Terrible. But you saw, you know, you got some of it. It's cold, right? Mushy, yucky, all that. But it won't be here long. You know, it'll be here just for a little bit. Anyway, get your toy. You'll feel better. We'll finish our talk. Plato's main point was in that book that we've been talking about, is that the ideal person, just like there's ideal form for everything, the ideal person is someone who cultivates the mind and the body, which you do. You think about how to find your toys, and then you do a lot of exercise trying to find them. So he calls that the warrior statesman. So maybe we could call you something like that, you know. So the warrior statesman is someone who, for every bit of intensity that he has reading in a book, let's say, he'll have that same intensity during his training exercises. And, you know, that to him is a personification of the ideal person. What do you think of that? And the reason that Rome really, in the end, was just destined to decline was it was a society that was based on the necessity of conquest and needed to conquer to exist. And the moment that Constantine, when he moved the capital and he legalized Christianity, Pouncer, how do you have a society that's predicated on conquest and killing and death? Its whole survival is predicated on that. How do you have a society like that and at the same time allow for the concurrent existence of Christianity? These are two ideologies that just don't go together. And if only Constantine had understood that there's just an inherent incompatibility between Christianity and the Romans' ideology of conquest, the necessity of conquest, things would have been very different. But he didn't see that, and he moved the capital. I'll never understand that. You know, he really destroyed Rome. If you want to know, like, why did Rome really decline, look at him. You know, why would you move the capital to Constantinople? That makes no sense whatsoever. It really didn't. You know, capital should really be in the center of an empire. And you know why? In case there's an uprising. There's an uprising, the capital is there in the center, just in case the government needs to, like, kill all the people. You know, not all the animals, the people, just the people who have to come in. You know, but he didn't get that, and so this takes us to the Byzantine Empire, which we were talking about yesterday a little bit. And so why don't we start now? Alfonso X, Alfonso X, is that he created, just at a time when there was so much conflict between Arabs and Jews and Christians, he created a translation school. So everybody there, they were working together to understand things, right? He was a poet. He was an amazing man. He was a great leader. But the reason he was a great leader was that he understood the need for people, first of all, to understand each other, just in terms of, hey, pay attention, Pouncer, in terms of languages and stuff. But also, he was a poet, and he used something called escarmiento, which we wouldn't use in modern poetry, but it's kind of like, pay attention, pay attention. You're not paying attention. If you don't pay attention, you're not going to learn. Do you want to be ignorant? You want to be an ignorant cat? All right. And so escarmiento is like when you're making fun of somebody, which today, of course, would be a terrible thing to do. but you're not paying attention. This kind of thing, you do that at home. All right? Pouncer, he led to a better society. I'll talk about it later. And a lot of the ideologies that people feel that are lacking today,
head west,
in Arab societies, is just not true. They're looking at one society, which is a nation, not a state. A state has land. The nation has a common ideology, common beliefs, common language. It's not the same thing as a state, which has, land also. But the person who really had the most influence when it comes to mollifying Islamic fundamentalism, you go back to Muhammad Abdul, right? He started a movement called the Salafiyya movement. And honestly, he got that from a guy named Jamal al-Din al-Afghani, a Persian guy, who wrote him letters, and the two of them, they did it together. Isn't that weird? The guy who was sent. So the thing in Iran that people don't understand is that it's okay, buddy. That's just snow. Is that there's not just really one government. You have one government in Tehran, which they call Tehran, which is a beautiful city. Daddy lived there. But then in a place called Qom. Can you say Qom? What do you say? You say ha. In a place called Qom, there are these 5 religious leaders, and the people there believe that together, these 5 leaders, they are the personification of God. Right? So in 1979, there was a revolution in Iran, and Ayatollah Khomeini came into power, not Khamenei, which we have today. So they believed that he was the incarnation of God, right? And they were willing to do anything with him. When he died, people threw themselves into his grave. It was crazy. And the Shah of Iran, he was deposed. So after he died, people didn't really know what to make of it. And so this is Shiite Islam, which is a little different than Shia Islam. So they believe that these 5 people in Qom, that they are divine being. All right. So what do you do if, let's say, you got to drop a bomb? Who do you drop the bomb on, Pouncer? I mean, who's really making decisions there? Is it the government in Tehran or in Qom? Because really they have more power than people realize. And people also, it's funny, they don't realize how much of the pistachio industry, how much of that they run. Rafsanjani used to run, he dominated the whole pistachio industry, and he was running Iran and the pistachio industry. Can you believe that? What do you think of that? You can't eat pistachios. You're a carnivore. You're a good boy. You're a good student. You're learning stuff. So you're learning. It was Machiavelli. And he says, the ends justify the means. Which means if you want something, like in your case, to play in the snow, that you should do anything to get that. That the ends, the ultimate result, the goal of what you want, that justifies anything that you do to get it. So some people, like the kids in school, they actually like that, which I think is kind of funny. It's an unethical philosophy, however you look at it. But he was writing this in a book called The Prince. So he was advising the prince, and he wanted him to rule strongly. So he said, you do whatever you have to do. You do whatever you have to do, right? And that was like his main supposition. He says a lot more, but most of it is predicated on that. You like this? No? Confusing. I know it's your first time. It's cool, but it's cold, right? It looks fluffy, but it's mushy. I don't really think you should be playing it. I don't think it's a good idea. That you got it on your nose. When you're outside, you got it on your nose. It's a good nose you got there. There's 15 different verbs in Arabic. And people don't really talk about the last 5 that much, but they should. And, everything, once you understand how those 15 verbs work, you'll understand everything. Like jama'a, it's a guttural sound. It's to come together. But the word for Friday is jama or guma in Egyptian, right? So you see, the day when you come together to pray, You get it? Right? Like, kitab is a book. You know what kataba is? It's to write. It's to write. It's all connected. It's all connected. Kutub is books. One of the funny things you'll find about Arabic is that every word has its own plural. Can you imagine that? Like, sadiq is a fancy word for friend, right? But you know what the plural is? Ostika. Ostika. Which is the same as hadiq, which is a garden. The plural is ostika. But, you know, for the most part, they're all totally different. Could you imagine learning a word and then, every single word you learn, you have to learn a separate word for its plural? Well, that's what Arabic is. So, in any case, that's what Kant is saying, actually. It's Immanuel Kant, by the way. That we don't really know what a thing is in itself. We know what our senses tell us. We can touch it, taste it, see it, hear it, all that, right? But what is the thing in itself outside of our perception? We have no idea. You know what's funny about Kant is he has these wonderful books, metaphysical books, that you would actually like, but you know, and he talks about how we don't know really what things are, but then he has a book that proposes a lot of societal change. It's about politics. Even though he doesn't know what things are, he's willing to mess with them. It's interesting, you know what I'm saying? But the first one is the critique of pure reason, which is where we're getting most of the stuff that we've been talking about. Then there's a critique of practical judgment. Those are the two main ones that we should talk about. Now we got to get into Hegel, the phenomenology of mind. Some people think it should be translated phenomenology of spirit, but really not. What we really should do is talk about what is phenomenology itself, and then we can compare all three books. I really like this subject. I think that you'll enjoy it. Nietzsche, his main premise, really, if you look at all of his books, is that this idea that man shouldn't be subservient to religion, that religion promotes mediocrity. He feels, for example, that the concept of forgiveness, that's a big flaw in religion, that we've replaced revenge with forgiveness, which is something for a weaker man. Now what he considers, like Plato has the warrior statesman we're talking about, he has a Superman. So the man who is independent does what he needs to do to be great without following the sheep. The people who mention the word sheep, referring to people who follow other people, they don't know, but they're talking about Nietzsche. And you know, he has another book called The Drive, and you go down this road, and then eventually, like, there's just fewer things, you know, like there's just fewer of everything. There's fewer cars, there's fewer, like, cables on the side of the road, there's fewer everything. And then there's, like, this field, oh, you'd love it, this beautiful field, and there's horses and there's things, and you're like, where am I? Have I entered paradise? No. You know where you really are? You know where you are? You're in a place called Soria, Spain. Then there's these giant mountains, these 3 mountains, and you walk, and you're like, where am I? And something just tells you where to go. And so you go, and you go up, right? And suddenly you go in a cave, and you don't even know why you're going. It just makes sense to go that way. It's the most logical way. You just don't want to go in the other directions. And you get in the cave, and you walk, and something tells you which way to go. And you get to this place, and there's a guy sitting there with a book. And you say to yourself, well, I've heard of San Satorio, who's a saint who died, but he's still supposed to live on in these caves, right? And you wonder, like, are you that guy? I don't know. I mean, why is the guy sitting there by himself in a cave in the middle of nowhere, right? So your first instinct would be like, are you that guy, right? Of course he's not. So what you do is when you're there, you write in the book, you can write a wish to him about whatever you want. You can wish something. So, like, in your case, you might wish for, like, more toys or something. And you write that in the book, and then, a lot of people believe that you'll get it. So that's San Satorio, and he's in Soria. Many people believe that he's a saint that died, but he still lives on. His body died. He's no longer in this physical world. He is still in this physical world and in the spiritual world. So, we should really go there together. You'd like it. Then there's the Enchanted City. thing with him is Aristotle, he believed in slavery. I bet you didn't know that. He says that there's something called polity. That's the perfect form of government, right? And he wants the ruler to be able to rule strongly. You know, sound like something familiar, like we were talking about before? Sound familiar? Remember? The ends justify the means and all that. But he says that the citizen should feel powerful, but not politically powerful. A citizen should have power in his home. That's where the citizen should feel powerful, right? Do you feel powerful? But that the ruler should rule powerfully without interference from the citizens. Just know you're okay. You're okay.